Hello and welcome to the channel. In this video we'll be looking at brakes on a CT110. How to change brake shoes, how to check for wear and what to look out for when you're doing maintenance on your brakes. If that's something you're interested in, as usual, stick around and I'll get straight into it. Now here we've got a front wheel and a rear wheel. This is from a CT110. Let's start with the front wheel. So here we have the front wheel. And the brakes on these bikes are about the most basic on any motorcycle, about as easy as it gets. Let's have a look. So with the front wheel you can see the lugs on here to drive the speedo, which will drive through here. And if you look on the later model bikes, I think it was post 1993, the Australia Post CT110's later ones, you can see the speedo drive is in a different position, and this is when they moved the speedo above the handlebars because the postal worker was carrying a large bag of mail and they couldn't see the speedo if it was still mounted in the headlight with the mail in the way, mail bag in the way. So they moved the speedo drive up onto the top. And also you can see these brake arms. The later model is quite a bit longer and that gives them more leverage, so in effect a slightly better brake. The brakes on these bikes are not fantastic at the best of times, so it's doubly important that you keep them well maintained. So the brake simply slides off, and what happens when we pull the brake, when the lever moves, the cam twists, expands the brake, the shoes rub against the brake drum, and hey presto. On these later Honda ones they have wear indicators. You can see there's an arrow cast onto the brake plate there and an arrow on the tab there, and as the brake wears, when the tab gets close to the arrow, you know it's time to service your brakes. But on the older ones without a wear indicator, you can see that as the lever gets close, there's virtually no room left for the cable to pull and it's almost touching the hub. So that will give you an idea of how the wear is going. So the brakes will wear, the brake linings will wear. These are consumables, so they will need to be periodically changed. They only hold in place with two springs, very simple and easy. First thing you need to do when you remove the brake, give it a good clean. Brake cleaner is fantastic stuff, or just a brush. But the one thing you don't want to be doing is breathing in any of this brake dust. Here we have a rear wheel, rear brake plate. To remove the brake, all we need to do is slowly pull it out. Virtually identical to the front wheel. Changing of the pads is exactly the same on the front or the back. A few more things to look out for. So we still have the wear indicator, the arrow on there and the arrow on there, and also on the cam an index mark or alignment mark. There is a dot on the brake arm there and a dot on the shaft there. These need to be aligned. Now if the brake starts to wear and the marks are getting close, what some people do, they will remove this and move it round a couple of splines, and that's a bad idea for a number of reasons. Firstly, when the brake is off, the cam will be in this position, so there's very little movement force able to be applied, and also you'll get a lot of wear, accelerated wear on the cam there. But the worst thing is if you do it too much, like this brake, what can happen? This. The cam simply goes over center because the pads are so worn or the wheel is so worn, and the cam will go over center and you'll end up with no brake. So whatever you do, don't be tempted to move the arm round to get more life out of your brakes. renew the brake shoes, or you can buy brake shoes that are oversized with extra thickness. So a standard one will be 4mm, so you'll have an extra thick lining. Honda say the minimum there is 2mm, but that's a bit of an arbitrary thing because I've measured these and they're virtually just fractionally below 2mm, and you can see what happens because it's not just this, it could be the brake drum itself is worn, and you can see there where the shoe rubs there's a lip, and there is a measurement cast inside the hub there. It will say maximum diameter 111mm. It's difficult to measure, but a quick way is to put your finger underneath there, and if you can feel with your nail a ridge, as in this one, you'll know that it's getting badly worn. On later CT110s, the Australian Post version, what's commonly called the 12-volt bikes, the rear axle was increased, the diameter was increased, the rear brake was increased. So if you get an earlier model CT110 rear brake and try to fit it on a later one, you can see it's way too small. Just look at the difference in the size of the brake shoes. Much bigger on the later bike, and the later model CT110 must be the only motorbike in existence that has a larger rear brake compared to the front brake. Usually it's the opposite way around. So you'll need larger brake shoes for the later model bike. If you look inside the hub, it will say, I don't know if you can see that, maximum diameter 131mm. And same as before, feel for a ridge there, measure if possible if you have the calipers to do so. So the brakes, as I said before, the brake shoes are simply held in place with the two springs, and to remove them you pull them off just like that. Very simple. Now obviously you'd give this a good clean and check for wear, because as these wear marks come closer, yes, it could be that the linings are getting thin, but it could also mean that the brake cam there has wear, and it could also mean that the brake hub itself is worn, or a combination of all three, which is usually the case. If your bike's not been used for a while and this is stiff or seized, you can remove this bolt, take the cam out, clean it up, grease it and put it back. Let's have a look at that. Remove the bolt. So as you can see, that came through easily. So all you need to do is give it a good clean this up with some emery cloth, put some high melting point grease on there, refit it. Obviously you're going to check the cam for wear. There is a measurement of 6mm across there for a new one, but Honda don't give any measurements for wear on there. It just says replace when excessively worn. But what does that mean? Well, I've got two cams here. This is from a rear and this is from a front one, and you can see the rear cam is longer. So this is in good condition. You can see there's very little wear on there, but looking at this, look at the state, you can see the wear marks, so you're not getting the proper opening of the brake shoes with this cam, so this cam is unusable. So what we will do is clean this brake cleaner, like emery cloth, same in there. On the other side here we have a felt washer. Honda say slight little bit of oil. Well, let's put this back together. I've cleaned up the cam there, lightly greased it with some high melting point grease. Same with the hole there. Cleaned up the post there slightly, just taking the rust off. A very small dab of grease on there. High melting point. Sparingly, the last thing you want is grease getting on to your friction linings. So I'll put the dust seal back in, and with the cam Now the dot on the shaft there aligns with the dot just there, if you can see that, on the brake arm. Whoops, nearly forgot. So the dot there, if you can see, the dot is also where there is a spline missing. And if you look on this tab, the arrow there, and there's also a lug there, so this will only fit on in one place where there's the missing spline, which lines up with the dot. So if you get it right somewhere there, so correctly indexed onto the shaft, and then the brake, once again the dot in line with the dot there. Pretty simple. Torque this up as per the specs. So, putting the brake shoes on. So these are the shoes that I'm going to use. These are the old shoes, and as you can see, this one is glazed. You can see how it's really shiny. What you would need to do with that is rough it in a crosshatch pattern with some fine emery paper, some fine emery cloth, and deglaze the pads. But we can't use these because, as you saw before, the lining is too thin. We'll put these shoes in for now. Spring. Most of the time this is easy, but you can guarantee. I was about to be cynical and say you can guarantee with the camera in place, camera running, and now it's simply a matter of snapping them in place. And on they go. As you saw from the springs, they're going diagonally opposite. And one thing with your brake shoes, ensure there's a good leading edge, an angled leading edge like that on either side. So if your brakes don't have one, and look, these are a little bit iffy just there. If you have to, take a file and put a good leading edge there and there. Otherwise the brakes may snatch and or they'll squeal when you first apply them. Older shoes have two smaller springs across there. What you can do when you're taking your plate off, take a photo with your phone so you get the springs back in the same position. So that would be done. One more thing to look at on these rear brake plates. If we look at this one, and this is a later model. This is the later model with the larger diameter axle and a 130mm diameter brake. If you look in the hole there, you can see where this has chattered or worn. So the bolt's been moving around in there. And if you look there, you can see this is oval and there's wear marks. Look at the difference. So you wouldn't use this brake plate in this condition. What can happen? The fastener will let go. When you apply your brake, the whole drum will spin around and wrap the brake rod around your axle like a piece of spaghetti. There's plenty of photos on the internet, on forums, where that's happened to people. So have a good look at your brake plate before you reuse them. This one looks to be fine. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and it's given you the confidence to work on the brakes on your CT90 or CT110. Changing the shoes is easy. They are cheap to buy, so don't mess around. Any sign of wear, fit new parts. See you again soon in the next video.